Good morning and welcome to Safari Live. My name is Brent Smith. I have Jeandre on camera, and there's Tebs and Jamie on the other vehicle, and Scott and James out on foot somewhere. And isn't this a wonderful welcome back for me? Monster ellie bull, quite old. I'm going to try to get you a nice view. You can see he's got a really nice set of ivory on him, but you can see the skin starting to sag around his head, so probably around 50 years older, an old gentleman. And with him he's got an askari, is what they're often called, and it's a younger bull that sort of hangs around with the old bulls, specifically when they get towards the end of their time. It's almost like acts as a guard, and he's there. The old boy is very relaxed with us. This guy a little bit less so. I think he thinks we're up to nonsense, which we're not. But so good to be back, and what a wonderful way to start with some ellies and hopefully a few wild dogs a little later. There's the younger bull. You can see he's probably just over 20-ish, much smaller in the and much shorter. And it's absolutely wonderful to be back in the bush, and I do love ellie bulls. Look how he's using his tusk there to break off that little piece of buffalo thorn. Plants like the buffalo thorn are going to be very important while we're in this very dry cycle. Being an evergreen, they tend to hold more nutrients and moisture throughout the year, and they've already had their sort of flush of new leaves after that early rain we had, so definitely a preferred species that elephants are going to be feeding on for the next while. Hello, little man. Also, very nice ivory, even though it's still quite small, very even. Now, if you or I had to put our hand into that buffalo thorn, it would come back looking like it's been in a shark's mouth. They've got very sharp hooked thorns. And quite interestingly, they've got a hook thorn and a straight thorn. So not only will it rip you, it will also embed thorns inside you. And that elephant's skin is a couple of inches thick. And that enables them to... Oh, there we go, using his tusk again. And that enables them to feed on these thorny plants. And in the evolutionary race, that plants have developed these thorns to try defend against overfeeding, and then you get an animal like an elephant that has evolved to totally ignore their defenses. And then saying that again, elephants are very important for a lot of tree species, including buffalo thorns. They have tiny little fruits that are quite sweet and tasty, and obviously the elephants help by depositing these all over the place, and also depositing them in a pile of compost. So elephants only digest about 60% of what they eat, so the undigested stuff gets a good start in life. Hello, little man. He's coming to remind us how big and strong he is. Yes, you're very scary. And you can see the behavior is a bit different there. He's opened his ears a little bit. He's just showing us how big he is. And as I said, he's not quite as relaxed as the old man, who we're going to try catch up with in a second. There we go. He's going to follow the old man, and we're going to follow him. When you watch an elephant herd feeding, we do a lot less than an elephant herd moving through an area. So it's quite a thick block that that big gentleman went into. So he has been heading sort of in an northeasterly direction. Oh, there he is. So I'm just going to try position myself around the front of him. And it's a balmy 62 degrees Fahrenheit, or 20 degrees Celsius. There's a bit of cloud in the air, but I'm quite sure it's going to break up quite quickly. Now, it's incredible how such a huge animal can disappear. And there's that really big old bull. You can just make out his tail wagging through the bush there. But I'm going to move around to the other side, see if we can get a nice frontal shot of it. I'm probably guessing he's already on his last set of teeth. So he's an old gentleman, probably not too concerned with breeding and breeding herds at the moment. Quite content to spend his life feeding and drinking. But it is quite old. You can see his skin starting to sag, and as I said, there's very prominent. Oh, you can see the elephants have been pushing over trees, and they're able to push over much bigger trees than we can. Sorry guys, just be on the radio for a second. It's in Scott. Negative Scots. The last tracks I saw were Western Edge of Quarantine Junction with vertical access, but they were plain tracks. I didn't get a direction. It was quite dark, but I'm thinking they went towards the Gallagher Waterhole. So for those of you wondering, it's the tracks of the wild bogs we saw last night. Copy, thanks. Okay. He's in a little bit of a thicket there, but that's a little bit better. Go. He is hopefully going to move through out of the thicket shortly, but he is still there. He's just feeding slowly. We might be able to get a. You can see that lovely ivory he's got. You can see it's been well used over his life. I mean, you can see the stains of vegetation on it, but obviously not a very active feeder with his tusks on trees, and you can see he hasn't really broken them, and they're almost perfectly even. Come on, big boy. Can you just maybe sneak forward an inch and we'll be able to see a little bit more? Not really. How's that, Jeandre? Depressed those holes in his skull is, and that's one of the telltale signs of age in an elephant, but hopefully he will show us that a little bit more clearly in a while. And it looks like he's feeding off a guarri bush. Now that's not something you see too often. You don't see many animals feeding on guarri bushes. It's not a very nutrient bush, but in this dry cycle you will find animals, giraffe, kudu, elephants, will start feeding off them. They are an evergreen, but only really in times of drought do they feed on them. While we wait for him to move out into the open, as a few of you know, I've been up in the mountains fly fishing, and Lucy in Indiana is wondering how many fish I caught. Well, Lucy, I caught in total 6 trout and 6 yellowfish. And yellowfish are the beautiful golden indigenous species that occur in a lot of the freshwater rivers of southern Africa. And pound for pound, probably one of the most fun fish to catch. They're incredibly powerful fighting fish, and really one of the more difficult species to coax on fly. So I'm very happy with that, and specifically just where we were fishing was so beautiful up in the mountains. And I caught my highest ever rainbow trout, at 2,750 meters above sea level. So I was quite chuffed with that. We're way up on the border of Lesotho in South Africa, in a little town, near a little town called Rhodes. Some total population of about 4. There we go. You can see that nice, well, not nice, but that very depressed forehead. If he turns towards us, you can actually see how sunken it is, and that's what leads me to think he's sort of probably 50 odd years old and on his last set of teeth. You can actually see how sunken it is, and that's what leads me to think he's sort of probably 50 odd years old and on his last set of teeth. And he probably just has a bit of irritation in the eye, could be from dust. So not from the pre-orbital glands where we see quite a lot of elephants secrete from. He's actually got a little bit of a runny eye itself. And not uncommon, it could have just irritated it a little bit. Here we go. Looks like he's going to come towards us now. Hello, big boy. Gentle old gentleman. So he's probably about 6 meters from us, which I think is about 18 foot. Unfortunately, maths have never been my strong point, and conversions confuse me. We leave the maths to the smart people like Jamie. I love that sound of their ears flapping. Reposition a little bit. And so he's just moved into a position where I don't want to disturb him or scare him. I'm just going to get a bit of distance because I have to drive over some dry bushes here that are going to make a noise. Actually, let's just go around in a circle. And it's very important when you're approaching elephants, and I know our regular viewers have heard me almost harp on about watching their behavior, and if they show any of those signs that they're uncomfortable, that we need to move away. And obviously each elephant sighting is different, so you cannot ever treat all elephant sightings exactly the same. And also, this guy, really old gentleman, we want to show him some respect, keep a little bit of distance, especially because we're in a thick bush. If it was more open, it would be very different. But there's no need to bash and crash close to the animals and disturb them. And quite often how you position the vehicle and how you drive around them is very important. So you never really want to drive straight at an animal. You can, but you obviously have to read the situation first. But you always want to see, now there he is there, but I'm going to keep going away, so I'm not driving straight at him. I'll just take a slight angle away. It's less sort of threatening towards the animal. It's not sort of a, there's a hole there. Less of a sort of challenge, and rather let the animal walk closer to you than you force the issue by going closer to them. And now he's on the edge of the thick bush, so I'm hoping he's going to come out into this little clearing. he's very, very big, probably around 12 foot at the shoulders, the top of his shoulder. It's an incredibly large animal, probably weighs probably a little bit less now he's a bit older, but definitely around 6,000 kgs or 6 tons. And being such a lovely old elephant, and has probably experienced a huge amount in his life, and Lisa's saying, I just wonder what amazing stories this animal could tell us. Me too, Lisa, we could probably learn a lot from him. You can hear the little bull in the background breaking up. Botswana and Zambia can land you with up to 10 years jail time. So if you are ever in the bush and you do find a bit of elephant ivory, please don't pick it up. Just inform the correct authorities. And you can see, as I said, nice and old, and he's very particular. He seems to be choosing all the smallest young branches, and that obviously might be just because of his superior age, and he's going for the succulent things. He's not trying to go for the harder things that will be hard wear on his teeth. Only picking off the little end branches of that buffalo thorn. And see how I just used the tusk there to clip that little branch. So obviously at this age he still needs to eat around 200 to 300 kilograms worth of vegetable matter in a day. Very sedately chewing. Definitely not in a rush, this old man. And his young friend has joined him, just a little bit behind, and hopefully he'll come closer and you might be able to see a bit of the size difference there. And look at that. So isn't this incredible? We're able to bring you not only the sights of Africa, but you can hear him breaking those branches and feeding. And isn't it incredible that we are live sitting in the African bush and bringing it to your living room or bedroom, wherever you might be in the world. And for those of you, if there are any new viewers, you are able to ask questions, as you might have heard. And you can do that via two platforms. If you are a technological savvy person, you can send us a tweet and just pop the hashtag Safari Live in the question, and that'll come through to our final control. Or you can send us an email, and the email address is questions@wildearth.tv. I've been incredibly privileged to be able to spend the majority of my life in the wilderness and with incredible animals like this, but every single time it is just as special as the first time. something very calming for me about big ellie bulls. I really, really do enjoy spending time with them. It's always nice to come back from leave and trundle a couple of 100 meters out of camp and bump into some ellies. Now you see they've just suddenly, both of them, gone stock still. Now all of a sudden they're moving again. There's other elephants somewhere that have made a noise that we can't hear. I mean, a lot of an elephant's, seeing off the little one, frequencies that they can communicate on, we can't hear, so far lower than what we can hear. And when you see elephants just suddenly stop dead still like that, they're listening. So it's possible, I mean, you can't be 100% sure, not being able to hear what they do, that there could be a breeding herd or some other bulls somewhere that have been giving off those low rumbles, and they both stopped at the exact same time to listen. So quite interesting that. We've been chatting a bit about his teeth, and Miss Jeandre in Texas is wondering, do they get cavities? Most certainly. Their teeth work a little bit differently to ours. They sort of got one big teeth and they have a couple of sets through their lifetime. So I like to play a game with you guys out there. Who can actually tell me how many sets of teeth an elephant has in its lifetime? And remember to send your answers through to questions at wildearth.tv on email, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. I think I can hear another elephant coming towards them. And we'll just move the vehicle quickly. It sounds like that's maybe what... See, they've gone stock still and listening again. What I heard, some more elephants off to the south. Quite far away. I'm just trying to see if I can get a look through the bush. But no. So, Miss Jen, they do get cavities, but as I said, their teeth are very different from what most animals would, what you'd expect. So I'd really recommend you guys, if you get the chance, have a look on Google elephant teeth, and you can have a look at them. So they're large and plate-like, and it gets various sets that move up from the bottom through to the top during its life. And once they're on the last set, they generally are between over 50 years old. Oh look, there's a kudu. You see it through there, just feeding. Also, it's feeding on the same plant as the elephant, the buffalo thorn. And just make out a female kudu through the thickets. And she was a little bit to the left. There we go, a little bit to the left. Now, who can spot the kudu? Stop there, Jeandre. Zoom in. Now, if you go down a little bit, there we go, there's the kudu's leg. And you can just see the movement there. Also, feeding on buffalo thorn. There you can just make out the stripes on the body above the legs. But I think these ellie bulls and the kudu are enjoying their breakfast, and we haven't done more than a few hundred meters, and I'm hoping these guys will be around quarantine a bit later. We're not far. Also, remember, guys who are watching the Djuma Cam, that there's a very strong possibility that these old boys will go have a drink there, or the old boy and the young boy. So keep a lookout for them there. I think we're going to leave them to carry on feeding and go see if we can find some of those wild dog tracks. And while we do that, we're going to hop across to the gorgeous Jamie to see what she's been up to this morning.
And good morning, and welcome to what promises to be another stunning day on Djuma and Arathusa. Right, let's play a guessing game quickly. If you were wild dogs, where would you have gone from yesterday's incredible sighting? Because quite honestly, at this point, your guess is as good as ours. Been trying to figure out tracking all along around the dam. I'm assuming you guys didn't pick up anything on the dam camera, or we definitely would have heard from you. So which way did they go? I found where they came into the property yesterday, but that's absolutely no help, because we know that they were there. We saw them. What's happening? Now, I'm sure that Brent filled you in on the fact that yesterday afternoon we saw one of them racing past Inga's house after the impala, and we got to share in that incredible sighting with all of you yesterday afternoon. Yesterday, for those of you who might have missed it, we had the Investic pack. Hello, oh, that's a guinea fowl. Let's have a look at what the guinea fowl are up to while I chat about these dogs. They appear to be having a bit of a fight. We're right at breeding season for these guinea fowl running around. It doesn't seem to be much in the way of a strategy right now. It's just frantically running backwards and forwards. Oh, and one impala. Right, so the wild dogs yesterday, for those of you who might have missed it, the Investic pack came onto Djuma, and they set off in a frantic rush after some impala. Now, I know that James caught this incredible moment live, and it's something we discussed at length last night. An impala racing away from wild dogs, and it ducked behind a bush. It quite literally was, the wild dog was maybe 2 meters behind it. It was about to be captured and caught. And the impala just, I really have genuinely never seen anything like it. It ran past a bush and lay down. And the wild dog went sprinting off past it and completely missed it. And that kind of tactic is absolutely phenomenal. I have never heard of that happening. None of the presenters have ever seen that happen before. And we debated at length last night to what went through that impala's mind. Was it just exhausted? Did it think it through? Was it a tactical decision? Or did it just really need to lie down? Didn't have any other option? Because antelope can't run forever. We know that. We know that that is how wild dogs are so successful. But apparently, unless something is running from them, they don't necessarily realize that they should be chasing it or catching it. Let's just pop over to my favorite jackal very quickly and double check what's happening there. Just a quick reminder for those of you who might have missed it. Patricia, I know you wanted a reminder, and I'm sure many of the other viewers do as well. Please don't forget that we've shifted our morning time to half an hour earlier. So we drive from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central African time, which I believe is 10 p.m. Eastern time for those of you in the States. That has caused some confusion recently. We got a nice example here of a relationship. Now, I know that the Nat Geo website, or the Nat Geo Wild website, times haven't been changed just yet, but that doesn't mean that they haven't, so please don't panic. If you see us out and about half an hour earlier. Alright. I'm going to show you two things here. We've got a family of Dwarf Mongoose around the root of this fallen tree. Hello, little ones. Scurrying around. That, I bet, is a perfect hiding place for their favorite snacks, which of course are insects, scorpions, any kind of bugs like that. They've disappeared off. And off to the right of them on the ground, which is something you very, very often see, and I'm going to make a point of showing you regularly at Dwarf Mongoose sighting, is their companion. In this case, a red-billed hornbill, but it can be either red-billed or yellow-billed. And I know I've mentioned this to regular viewers, but for new viewers, these two animals have a very close relationship in places. They've actually done research into it. So the hornbill he gets to grab the leftovers while the mongoose are foraging, and in return he provides an extra set of eyes that is at a slightly higher level, because he or she can fly up and watch from above. And they've actually done studies where they've shown that it's the same hornbills that associate with the same mongoose groups, and if the mongoose oversleep, the hornbills in this particular study would go and sit at the entrance to the burrow and call to them and wake them up to get them to come out. And the same goes for the mongoose. If they didn't see any sign of the hornbills when they came out of their burrows in the morning, and they were incredibly reluctant to leave and would wait until the hornbills made an appearance. A very interesting example of an unexpected mutually beneficial relationship. And there's a couple of those out there. I know that a lot of you were having a look at that article on that National Geographic published about francolin and wild dog. And essentially, the francolin act as, I suppose, housekeepers is the best word. And they hang out around the wild dog den and they clear up all of the excess rubbish so that you don't get a parasite buildup all around a den site, which, as you can imagine, would be pretty easy to do, because the wild dogs are bringing back food all the time, they're regurgitating it for the pups, and inevitably you get that build-up from the scraps. But the francolins come along and they clean it up, and in return the wild dog puppies play with them but never hunt them or hurt them in any way. Natasha, I also hope that we see the wild dogs this morning. There is nothing more exciting than wild dogs out and about. It's the perfect time, which is of course why we have switched our times to half an hour earlier. Perfect time to be out and viewing wild dogs. We just have to figure out where they went. And if you have any guesses that you would like to share with me, I'd be interested to hear them. You can send those through to #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email them through to us on questions@wildearth.tv. Did they go to Buffelshoek? Did they go down south? Did they cross Gowrie Main? I can tell you where they didn't go. They didn't cross the northern Buffelshoek boundary anywhere between, so essentially north of our waterhole, so north of the dam camera. There's a lot of hyena activity. Now, you guys may or may not have seen this, but that incredible sighting that Scott and myself had early one morning, where the wild dogs were targeting that one hyena. Now, that was the Sands Pack, and the Sands Pack has a much larger number of adults. It's somewhere in the region of 10, we think. 10 adults in the pack, and compared to the Investec Pack only has 3 adults at the moment. So they don't have the same advantage. I know that James chats a lot about the predator hierarchy, and he always says that hyena and wild dog vie for sort of the second and third place. And that is where it becomes entirely dependent on numbers. The more wild dog there are, the better the chance they have of actually, what's the word? Being able to even potentially kill a spotted hyena, as we saw in that particular instance with Scott. That hyena was incredibly lucky to get away. But with the Investec Pack hanging out around our clan, they don't have the same advantages. Okay, I'm not sure about you guys, but I have a feeling about Buffelshoek Dam. Maybe we should go and check there. I've spent a great deal of the morning leaning out of the car trying to double check for tracks. People's guesses coming through as to where those wild dogs might be. Diane, you and I are on the same page, but I haven't seen any tracks just yet. Diane suggested the drainage line around Buffels Hook. I hope we're right, because that's where we're going. But Chris Rogue, you suggested Impala Plains and Sandy Patch, also very valid, which is why Brent, Scott and James are checking on that side of things and spreading out around there. And Andreen, yes, anywhere away from the zebra and the wildebeest. And for those of you who are not sure about the story behind that, after the incredibly dramatic hunt of that impala, the wild dogs were out in that wonderful open patch of quarantine clearings. And the zebra and the wildebeest, apparently this is quite common, they were basically ganging up on the wild dogs. At one point, the zebra were chasing them away, and I mean, zebra could do some serious damage if the wild dogs were caught by them, but the chances are wild dogs are too... Oh, it doesn't think we've seen him. Oh, he was a little daker sitting on the termite mound. I think we both got a surprise there. Ducked away though, we were very, very close, and did the little antelope thing of freezing. To go through a bit of a dip, but let's see if we can get Lisa's question answered on wild dogs. Lisa, you were wondering if wild dogs would let a random male into their pack. It's uncommon and fairly unlikely, but that's at an established pack stage. Oh, the Dakers are shy today. I'm going to try and show you the second one, probably the mate of the first one, but it's disappeared off very quickly into the bush. Lisa, and it seems to me unlikely, but it could happen in the formation of the pack. So remember, if the pack gets big and the animals want to go out and have mating opportunities of their own, because they're not part of the alpha pair, so they won't have a chance to breed, or it's unlikely they'll have a chance to breed, then what will happen is you'll get a dispersal pack. And at that point, that dispersal pack will be only males or only females. And then they have to become a strange or a nomadic if you lost me for a bit there. Sometimes the dips in the drainage lines tend to play a little bit of havoc with our signal, but I'm back up and running again, and I was in the middle of answering Lisa's question. And to backtrack in case you missed some of it, Lisa was asking about packs accepting unknown males, and my answer was in established packs it's fairly unlikely, but I wouldn't say impossible, because you never know out here exactly how the dynamics are at play. And we certainly do not know everything about those amazing creatures. It's entirely possible. I think your best answer would be the most likely scenario where that would happen: dispersal packs. So when a pack of wild dogs gets to the point where it's quite large and there are dogs that want to have opportunities to breed and they can't because they're not the alpha or the beta, then they will disperse away from the pack. Which makes sense. You've got to have a way of keeping the genetic lines fresh and intermingled. But when they do disperse, for that reason, they'll disperse either all males or either all females. And then they go off in search of other wild dog dispersal packs or other strange wild dogs. And then, of course, they have to accept them into their pack. It's all about the formation of a new pack. But for established ones, it's possible but unlikely. Through yesterday from one of our viewers, and it's a very interesting one and not one that I fully know the answer to, but for the lower ranking wild dogs, okay, only the alpha breed, only the alpha pack, the alpha male and the alpha female will breed. Sometimes what does happen is the beta female, so just one step below in the hierarchy, she might mate and then give birth to pups. A lot of the time they don't survive because the alpha female makes sure that her pups have the best access to food. That being said, the question is whether or not, because they are subordinate and they aren't likely to have an opportunity to breed, does that mean that they actually don't mate? The answer is no, they will still mate. What you'll find, there's actually some really interesting science behind it, and you see it where there's systems of alphas and dominant females, for example in meerkats and mongoose as well, that the hormones of those animals are actually suppressed. Now, I'm not sure if it works in the same way with wild dogs, but I know in meerkats the females have incredibly high levels of testosterone to provoke aggression and to make sure that those subordinates stay in their place. So it's not that they don't want to mate, it's that they're suppressed by a combination of an aggressive alpha and a slight dip in hormones. But they will get to the point, and animals breed. I know that in banded mongoose they always find a way. So if two groups of banded mongoose meet and they have a territorial battle, then a couple of the subordinate females who haven't been allowed to mate with their group will disappear off with a strange male from the other group while the mongoose are fighting each other and have a quick mating session in order to, that's just her instinct, her biology tells her that she needs to reproduce. So I wouldn't say that they don't try and mate, I think it's slightly suppressed. Typically when we see something like a leopard or a lion kill, they will rip open the stomach and move away the stomach contents. And Kay, you were wondering if wild dogs do the same thing. And yes, for the most part they will. They'll try and get rid of it. They're actually quite picky about what they eat. They will, as you know, only eat fresh kills. So only essentially what they've killed. They won't scavenge. That branch nearly took me out. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. So Kay, yes, they will remove the intestines. I've never seen a wild dog eating the stomach contents, and essentially there's very little nutrients for them in that. You can imagine, I mean, it's grass, which is fairly indigestible to the predators out here, or the carnivores, just like it is to us. We don't have the proper proteins to break down the cellulose grass, what they called? Cell walls, there we go, sorry. Had a moment there. What you will find they might do, and I'm sure it's been spoken about before, you might even have seen them doing it if you've been lucky on our live drives. The same way that they rub themselves in hyena scat. I'm sure if you've ever seen that, I know I have. Incredible to see. They go and they roll in it, they get that scent all over them. Not fully satisfied as to why they do that. I don't think I really know the answer. But they might also roll in the stomach contents as well. Wild dogs like to roll in smelly things, essentially. And I'm sure some of you have pet dogs at home that like to do the same thing, whether you want them to or not.
And gone. No, still there. There she is. Jump. Off she goes. They quite often don't like sitting too long on camera. So while we're checking for tracks, and there's been quite a few questions that have come in, and we've got one from a new viewer. Welcome to Safari Live, Djuma. I hope I'm saying it correctly. Djuma is wondering if there are any oryx or gemsbok. There's another name for them in South Africa in this area. So Djuma, no, there aren't. They're a dry species. The closest place you're going to find... Oh, sorry, Djuma, so I see the tracks here. The closest place you're going to find gemsbok here is probably just over 150 kilometers to the north, in an area called Messina, and that is the transference zone between the Kalahari grasslands and the low-fault bushlands. A very interesting area, very diverse in tree species and mammal species, because it's that sort of border zone where they merge. So those leopard tracks were coming down this way, and for those of you wondering what a gemsbok or an oryx looks like, here we go. That's them there. Very beautiful, beautiful antelope, very big antelope. Now this map's a little bit wrong, but we are sort of, oh, I need something smaller to point with a stick. We are over there in South Africa, and the gemsbok range actually extends just a little bit further down to there. So they prefer the arid north and west, and you find them all along, sort of in the Karoo and the Kalahari region of South Africa, throughout Namibia and Botswana. Tiny population going through to Zimbabwe in that Miombo sand woodland around Wangi National Park. Also there's another species of oryx that occurs in Africa on the Masai Steppe, which is another arid area in Tanzania, and that is called a fringe-eared oryx. So two species of oryx that occur in southern and east Africa. If I remember correctly, yes, there are others related to them that occur further north, but very, very endangered up in North Africa and the Sahara. Listen to an update from Tax. Oh, and he's right behind me. I'm just going to get through the dip and move off, and we can discuss our plan on how we're going to find this leopard. And Scott and James are going to go check for those wild dogs. So, and Jamie. So that's the most wonderful thing about having all these vehicles out. The more vehicles we have out, the better chance we have of finding something. Just looking for these leopard tracks now. Off the road so Tax can shoot ahead. He's got a tracker sitting on the front, so it's much easier for him to spot tracks. Option! Hello everyone, how are you guys doing?
I just put my makeup on.
Sorry, Tax?
If you want to check my TV today, watch that for 3 hours, because when you business, that cuts the towards the ball.
Okay.
So I went.
Are you going to check for the England?
Yeah, I'm going to go check that.
Jump. Thanks for support. Enjoy, guys. There we go. Morning meeting over. So, Tax is just explaining where the last wild dog tracks were, and we're going to still hang around here. So there's leopard tracks that maybe headed towards Mumba Road. So let's go have a look. So the reason we let Tax go ahead, although all of us are competent trackers, it makes a huge difference having a tracker sitting up on the front and focusing specifically on looking for tracks and nothing else. So it does increase the chances of seeing those tracks. always so excited coming back from leave and checking through. But Jamie's got a surprise for you, and we'll be back a little later.
Surprise! Guess who? Actually, I don't know who. I need to double check, but we have Tebs to thank once again for his incredible leopard spotting skills. Tebs has a gift. Looks like a female. Let's follow behind. Try and stay with him. Sorry guys, bear with me as we try and get through the block. We'll get a nice visual, and I'm just going to contact Taxon. He's trying to call me. See how Tax going. I've got the animal moving directly west from Cheetah Cutline towards Djuma Cam. Wow, how exciting is this? What a nice surprise. I'll let you know. Definitely a female. And I think it might be our queen, Karula. Oh, this is so exciting. Hello, beautiful. Come on, I need to see your face. Disappearing down. Shoot forward a little bit. Which way are you going to go, girl? You're so unpredictable. Who is this, everybody? Who have we got here? I'm fairly certain it's Karula. Come on, girl. Look here for me. She's smelling somebody. I wonder if Mvula hasn't come through and scent marked around here. She's definitely sniffing something. Changing direction, she's moving around. She's completely changed where she is. She was going west, she's now looking east, and something's attracted her attention. Could it be that she's on the hunt for another male to mate with? No, she's mating with Tingana. Hold on a minute, I'm going to try and get around there. Let's try and get a view of her face. How exciting! Tebs, you are a legend. A leopard spotting legend. It's very thick in here and it's very bumpy, but we're going to stay with her. It looks like Karula to me. How did she do that? She's such a mysterious cat. Pops up where you least expect her. Which way are you going to go, big girl? Heading towards Buffelshoek, I think. She's definitely on something's trail. She keeps stopping to sniff. Smelling around the area. I think Mvula's been through here and has been scent marking. Look at the way she's checking at the base of every tree. You can see intently sniffing. As I said, she was mating with Tingana. I wouldn't be surprised if she's looking for a different male to have a mating opportunity with. Look how intently she's smelling that tree. Oh, so exciting. Look at that tail twitch. Completely subconscious. You can see it's just outside of her control. She could also be smelling another female, which of course would definitely put her nose out of joint, so to speak. She's territorial marking as well, so it could be that another female's come into her territory. And for new viewers, leopards are territorial in terms of the other sex, the same sex as them. So females are territorial to females, males to males, and so on. Stop here for the moment. Let's see which she's going to go. Definitely Karula. Look at that tail going. Wow. Thanks, girl. I'm so glad she's going to stick around. Okay, let's reposition. Get a nice view of her face first. Reproductive status is male, female, age. These animals see the world through smells. Cool. Oh, Tebs, well done. And apparently Twitter agrees with me. I think in future Tebs shall have no more off days and no more leave. He shall have to be formally employed as our leopard spotter. Spotting spotted cats. Okay, let's try and do this nice and slowly. Whoa. Ducking down. Hello, girl. You beautiful, beautiful creature. That's Karula. Into the sun, but the most stunning image of her. Look at that. We're eye level with one of the most extraordinary creatures out here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's nothing that can look, I was about to say as comfortable as a leopard can on a termite mound. All right, girl. Where are you leading us? Back to Buffelshoek Dam, possibly. Tree. On the tree. Say that, Paul, is just because we're on the far eastern side of Djuma. I think it's a little bit far for Shadow to have moved, and last time she was seen, she was actually going into Elephant Plains. Look at that. I'm using a combination of whiskers and nose, and still that tail's going. Now, my leopard language skills, I guess, are rudimentary, if you can think of it that way. We're reading her, what she's telling us by her body language, and that tail is just that little bit too complex for me to understand. Something's happening in her brain. She's telling us something with it. Usually when cats' tails twitch like that, it can be a sign of irritation. It could also be a sign of excitement. We just don't know. Paul, if it were Shadow in her territory, she wouldn't be chuffed about it. But females are more tolerant of their daughters encroaching on their area. And of course, territorial lines are not set in stone, they're fluid. So she'll be more tolerant of her daughters than any other female. But leopards are curious creatures. I've read tales of leopards being incredibly disgruntled. Sorry, let's just go through this. I've heard leopards have been disgruntled with daughters encroaching on their territory, and I have heard tales of them being perfectly tolerant of it, sometimes to the point of sharing kills with their daughters and their offsprings. Guys, just bear with me one moment. I'm just going to update Taxon. Tax. Tax, it's Karula. She is on the fire break now. She's now moving northwest. I think come northern side of Buffelshoek Dam, but come onto the fire break from there and start moving towards Cheetah Cut Line. You should find us along there. Now, I need to get down onto the road, but it's a very, very steep drop. And something might have to reposition in order to do. So let's just sit with her for the moment. Enjoy the view that we have of our wonderful queen. And finish off to answering Paul's question. She would be more tolerant if it were shadow. It could also be, I think Tundi moves through this area quite a bit. She's around Torchwood side. So that could be the female that she's smelling, if she's smelling a female. How lucky have we been? Flies. All right. Guys, we have to do a bit of a reposition in order to get onto this road. Now, while I reposition and get onto the road, let's head to Brent, who has a leopard of a different sort. I will be back with you very shortly.
From a leopard to a leopard tortoise. You can see the little guy breathing there. See some grass in its beak. It's been moving away, and you can see even tortoises get ticks. And you can see there's a tick on his neck. And a very highly mobile tortoise, as tortoises go. About to become highly mobile. Aren't they a wonderful little thing? Look, you see there's a hole in its carapace or in its shell. It's like something maybe trying to eat this poor tortoise at some point. See on the left hand side, just off center, that looks like almost like a tooth mark. Back to the other leopard.
Karula in a marula tree. Does it get better than this? It really, really doesn't. Tax, yeah, she's in the marula here. Wow, what a stunning view. It's incredible. Surveying her territory in the best possible way. Sorry guys, I just want to direct Tax in here. Taxon, she's in this marula in front of me. Staring out, surveying her territory, getting a nice high view. Isn't this so beautiful? Going further up. How interesting. We've been on the search for wild dogs. Oh, this is beautiful. Perfect. A leopard in a tree a leopard should be in. And look how comfortable she looked. Sorry, we've been on the search for wild dogs, and Shannon, you wanted to know what would happen if Karula came into contact with the wild dogs. Shannon, they would chase her, she would run, and probably be exactly where she is now. Yeah, Taxon, she's Lalapanzi in this marula. getting even further up into the foliage. Now this is the time of year where we start to see leopards doing this. It's a perfect spot for them. The marulas and the jackalberries, they've got plenty of shade cover for them. And then they're nice and high and safe up in the tree. And it's cooler up there because they get the wind blowing. Look how high she is. She must be, I don't know, probably about 15 meters up in the air. It's a big marula tree. And look how she disappears. You could drive past her without even realizing. Right. Are you okay there, Tax? You could, or do you want me to move a bit?
Could you cut that branch?
It's incredible. The feet dangling off the edge.
This one's a smaller one.
April, I was looking at her tummy. She's looking well fed, but we won't know if she's pregnant just yet. She was mating with Tingana only about 2 weeks ago. Now, the only way we're going to know is, first of all, if we see her mating in the next week or so, in the next 2 weeks, that means that she wasn't pregnant. It means that the pregnancy failed and she's come back into estrus. If we don't see her mating, then we're going to have to wait for probably somewhere in the region. They gestate for about 3 months, so we'll have to wait for a while. And only right towards the end of their pregnancy do they start to show signs. You might see their nipples become slightly more swollen and dark. But the thing that happens when they are pregnant, when they're about to have cubs, is that female leopards go to ground. They disappear and they hide away in drainage lines, preparing for the birth of their cubs, because being solitary moms, being solitary single moms, they have to leave their cubs regularly to go out and search for food, which means they have to find a nice safe hiding place for the cubs in the meantime. Now, guys, we've got to spend quite a bit of time with Karula. I'm going to reposition slightly so that this other vehicle can have a view. Are you going to move forward? I can move around. Yeah.
You can get her face.
How amazing is this image? And I'm really glad that you all are enjoying it as well. It's actually been a long time since we've had a chance to see a leopard in a tree properly like this, or certainly it's been a long time for me. Last time I saw Karula up a tree, it was because she was dashing away from the Salala pride. It's nice to see her under slightly more relaxed circumstances. Face tucked away in the foliage, and I don't know, she somehow suits this image perfectly. The queen on her throne with bright green leaves highlighting her in the morning sun. I don't think it gets better than this. Oh, time for sleeping. Nap time in a tree with the paws dangling down. There's nothing that looks more relaxed than a leopard. And yes, there's definitely a full belly there, hanging over the edge. Looking quite contented there, Karula. Tail dangling down, the perfect instrument of balance. Oh, I can't believe how lucky we've been. Tebs is a lucky charm. And so perfect that she decided, you probably don't realize we are about 50 meters from the Buffelshoek cut line. She could quite happily have gone 50 meters further and stopped in a marula tree on Buffelshoek, and we wouldn't have been able to sit with her and stay with her. And she's decided to give us the perfect view. Although, you know, right behind a branch. always fantastic to hear from some of our newer viewers. Rich King, you were wondering if these big cats have the same ability as domestic cats, in terms of if they fall off something, can they land on their feet? The answer is yes, they can twist just as well as domestic cats. Maybe not so much lions. Lions are slightly clumsier than leopards, but leopards have the agility and grace that is pretty much unparalleled out here. They can climb practically anything. And the chances, I have seen leopard cubs fall out of trees before when they're a little bit inexpert and not quite sure exactly what they're doing, but they always land on their feet. I've seen some ungraceful dismounts from trees from leopards that are struggling to get down a pretty much vertical trunk. But for the most part, they're very, very well adapted for what they do. That body is incredibly lithe and flexible and can twist right around. I always imagine that it must be an incredible feeling to have the power and grace of a leopard, as probably one of the most clumsy and least graceful people on earth. It must be nice to have that level of control. There's that tail that is oh so crucial in terms of helping to balance her. What a peaceful scene. I love these wild safaris, these wildlife safaris. That is not what she was not what I was looking for, but she is a very welcome surprise. Of course, we were searching for high action dogs, and instead we found this beautiful scene of pure comfort. Legs draped down over the limb. Ellen, I completely agree. Ellen's watching all the way from Arkansas, and Ellen says it looks as though that branch grew perfectly to provide a sleeping spot for Karula. It's a gift that leopards have. It's the same with the termite mound. It's like the termite mound shapes itself around them to make a nice, comfortable spot for them to lie. I mean, if they really do, they have a way of looking comfortable. Looking perfectly happy there. Now, 2 days ago, the and that's why she's gone racing up to the roof.
So guys, we got some really good news. Scott and James have found the wild dogs, and we're racing to get there. We're getting really close now. I can see them up in the road ahead. They're standing up. Hopefully they're going to be on the hunt. For those of you who don't know, this is my favorite animal. It makes me behave like a wild dog. We move around really quickly. There they are. And there's Scott and James. Thank you very much, Scott and James. So I can just see, looks like the 3 adults. Well done, well done. James, I see you still have the stick. Well done. Haven't lost it yet.
No, no.
The youngsters are on or just adults?
No, they're just open there.
Here we go. Those leopard tracks don't come out, and they're fresh. They're nice tracks.
Wonderful.
Oh, tired puppies. Doesn't look like they've eaten, eh?
No, they haven't.
Okay, we're live? Yes, of course we're live. James wasn't sure we were live. There you go. No. See, he's missing the camera already. So apparently the youngsters are lying up very close to the adults. But it doesn't look... We'll have a look at their tummies now. Hello, puppies. So I can't see any of the telltale sort of blood around the face. Got fresh milk. And there is a bit of a bulge in the belly. Here's the male. So guys, if you hear click, 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 it's just my camera. And I encourage you guys to get some screenshots. I'll show you guys. Just need to call Andrew on the radio quickly. He was looking for an update on wild dogs earlier. Andrew. Very good, thank you, Andrew. I heard you were looking for my Dutch earlier. We've got my Dutch on Philemon's cut line, 200 meters to the sort of southwest of Shabam Road. So you can see the adults, there's 2 males and 1 female. This male walking has a bit of a limp. Nothing too serious, looks more like a stiff muscle. See, he's very distinct. The way to remember him, if we look at his left hand here, he's got a very distinct notch in it. And he turns his head again. And I think, just judging from the looks of him, that's a beta male. And the other male is the alpha. Just, he's a bit bigger. See, there we go, you can see that very distinct nick out of the left hand ear. Oh, I just love the colors on them. And the Latin name the scientific name is almost perfect. Licon pictus, painted wolf. And we have a look there, it looks to be the alpha. He's also got some nice distinct nicks in his ear. Also in his left is the major one. And he's a lot more blonde than the other male. So it does look like their bellies are full, maybe late last night or very early this morning they managed to catch something. There we go, he's got nicks in both his ears. Nice IDing features on them. Well, these guys are all flat. So let's just, for interest sakes, let's go see where the youngsters are. So while we go see where the puppies are, we're going to go have another look at the Queen of Djuma.
Well, guys, I just wanted to, I know that Brent's got the dogs and it's been such an exciting morning. I don't want to keep you away for too long. Never fear, Karula is still with us. Wanted to just give you the best view for now, but we are going to have to reposition to a view where we might not see her as well. So I just wanted to give you one last view of Karula very comfortably in her position in the tree. We're just going to be here for a short while. The vehicle is here, and we're going to reposition to give them an opportunity to come and see her. What a beautiful image we have. Now I think that we are actually going to have to leave the sighting. There's lots and lots of people who are wanting to come and join us, and they of course must all have their opportunity to come and view her, but never fear, we'll come back as soon as everybody has had a chance to have a look at her. And while we reposition and give them a chance to come and see her, we'll head back across to Brent and his favorite wild dogs.
Just having a quick look where the youngsters could be. I don't think they'll be too far from where the adults are sleeping. I don't see them now. But I think we're getting a little bit too far, so let's turn around. Maybe they were so flat we missed them. Jeandre, get those spotting eyes out.
What have you seen?
Oh, they've come. They've joined the adults while we disappeared. They've come in behind us, and there's some greeting going on. The whole pack together now. Puppies and adults. Hello, doggies. Look at those little heads. We're curious watching the tires. Look at that. Hey, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So as we said, there's that one of the adult dogs was limping. We picked it up. Just looks like a bit of a stiff muscle. And Brendan noticed that one of the wild dogs was rubbing his backside along the ground and was wondering if he has any parasites, or she has any parasites. Most definitely, these guys will be full of worms and flukes and other things, and like most predators, they do have quite a lot of parasites. One of the reasons you never really want to pick up wild dog or any predator feces. Sorry, quickly go back across to Jamie.
We've had a chance to stay with Karula for now. We are going to have to pull out, but I just wanted to, having had that conversation about cats landing on their feet, Karula's about to jump down. There she goes. There, that grace and incredible litheness. I'm not sure if litheness is a word. But she's popped down and onto the ground. I really wanted to be able to show you that. Here we go. Deciding where she's going to go next, having surveyed her kingdom. Look at that. Territorial marking. Having a scrape. And quickly urinating. Where are you going to go, Karula? Where's she gonna go? Somebody. And stay with her. There's a very good chance she's going to those of you who might have missed who we have, it is Karula, our wonderful Queen of Djuma, about to cross Buffelshoek boundary, where we, of course, cannot follow. But what a special way to start the morning. And of course, all thanks to Tebs and some incredible gift he has with spotting leopards. I don't know how it works, but it clearly works. Which way around this tree are you going to go, Karules? You're not going to come this way, are you? Alright guys, bear with me one moment. I'm standing by Tax. No problem, Taxon. I think she's going to cross into Buffelshoek soon, so we'll pull out of the sighting when she does. Oh, look at that! Up on her hind legs, urine spraying, territorial marking. That's a perfect example of scent marking. First her face, rubbed against the tree. Oh, and I can smell it. It's coming towards me. Everybody says it smells like popcorn, fresh cooked popcorn. I'm not sure I've ever been able to agree with that scent description. But I don't know. That's what everybody else says they can smell. So she is on a territorial patrol. Oops, sorry. Move my head out of the way. I think there's a good chance there was a female who came through. We don't know. It could be it could either be a male that she's trying to attract the attention of, or it was a female making its way into her territory. Sitting watching Karula, we chatted about how essential that tail is. That is currently twitching back and forth and showing her mood. And we have a question now in terms of balance. It's about, just to let you know, it's about 2/3 of her body length and incredibly heavy. And Christopher, you were wondering if it's bone or muscle. And if we have a look at it, the bone extends part the way down, but not all the way down. Most of that is muscle. You can see the way she's got that independent movement. Perfect. I'll try and keep my head out of the way, but still talking to the microphone. She's positioned herself right in front of our car. Look at it twitching side to side, and I'm pretty sure that is completely subconscious. Just like your pet cats at home. And that flash of white is so perfect to help cubs follow her through the grass and help convey her mood to other leopards. But it's interesting because it's potentially the one giveaway she has. She's perfectly tawny and camouflaged, apart from that little flash of white. And that's the one interesting aspect of leopard evolution that I don't fully understand, unless it serves as a distraction. Maybe it draws the eye of the antelope and they miss the bit with the teeth and the claws. Follow along with her. We're going to be saying goodbye to her fairly soon, or I hope she goes flat again on our side. She's going to disappear. We'll just let one of the landowners come through and follow along with her. We're going to be saying goodbye to her fairly soon, or I hope she goes flat again on our side. She's going to disappear. Try and stay with her. I think she's going to stop and scent mark on this marula. Yep. Quick urine spray, very, very brief. She is patrolling her boundary. letting every leopard know in the area that she is the queen and this is her place. Perfect. Thank you, Karula. Tail twitching. Now we're fortunate that she has come out into an open area. We can see her perfectly without having to move through a thick wooded bush. Of course, it's always important to make sure that you respect the environment and don't cause it any extra damage. Itchy neck. Sometimes they are just like our pet cats and dogs at home until they do something so wild and unexpected that you just never saw it coming. Gonna let her walk a little bit ahead of me before I reposition. She's shifting away. I'm gonna reposition one last time if she does decide to cross. And while we do, pay close attention. Watch the way that she walks. Watch the way that she moves. Because Mercedes, you were asking about the comparison between leopards and lions. I'm going to head close to the road. Mercedes, you wanted to know anatomically, what are the similarities and differences? Are they structured similar way? I think she might go and mark again against this tree. Let me duck my head down. There she goes. There we go. And again. Sorry, Mercedes, I'll be with you now. Interesting how sometimes she sprays her urine and sometimes she just urinates by squatting. I wonder why that is. Interesting. Is that tail twitching? Mercedes, you're looking at one of the biggest differences although the lion's tail is quite similar in length in proportion to their body size. The leopard has that heavy tip that acts as such an amazing rudder while they climb trees. She is going to cross here. She goes, disappearing onto, or not disappearing yet, moving along Buffelshoek Hook cut line, and there she goes across into Buffelshoek Hook. And we'll say goodbye to her for now. Obviously we can't follow her up into this area. We will say goodbye. Scent marking again. Now Mercedes, I haven't finished answering your question. Most of it is bulk in terms of the difference between lions and leopards. Sorry guys, Dave's calling me. Standing by. Copy that, thanks. switch off my engine for now so we can enjoy a Mercedes. You were asking about, sorry, for the third time, I will try and get to your question, I promise. Most of it is bulk and weight. Lions are, if we look at Karula, she's probably in the region of 50 kilograms. A lioness, in comparison, is about 130 to 150 kilograms. So basically triple her weight in terms of bulk, and male lions, of course, even larger. And although lions can and do climb trees, they do it with the same amount of grace that I do. So they can climb, they quite often fall down, and they often look quite out of place and confused. There are places in the more open areas of Africa, and I'm talking sort of the Eastern African, the huge clearings that you get with only a couple of big trees, and they are the only sources of shade. And there you'll find that the lions tend to climb trees more often than leopards. Sorry, not more often than leopards, more often than the lions here do. And their paws are very similarly structured, but the leopards are much, much smaller in proportion. Our wonderful Karula is going to disappear off into Buffelshoek very shortly. And I know that Brent has got playful puppies to show you. They're up and about. So for now, let's head across to him, take your last look at Karula, and we will say goodbye to her for now.
So we're still with the dogs. The puppies have been chasing each other around a little bit. Let me just move back a skosh. The others are looking a little bit more playful than these ones. So lying right on the road, getting hot quickly. So, what are you up to, mischief? There we go, just there we go, there's some playful pups all piling on one another. Adults on the move. Alright, they've just laid down over there, that's what. Okay. I think trying to get away from the playful puppies. So Terry is wondering, is this the Sands or half-tail pack? It's not, it's the Investec breakaway pack. And 3 adults and 11 puppies. There were 4 adults. While they were denning in the Manuletti, I heard from my friend at the Endangered Wildlife Trust that one of the 4th adult was killed by a snake. So just looking at the puppies' bellies, they've definitely fed since we saw them last night. So it seems like Dan was wondering if they fed, and you can see those little round tummies down. So it does definitely look like they have fed. Oh, that one's got a piece of buffalo poo by the looks of it. I'm going to pull some more bark off. Oh, we've got a second one now. Oh, I think we might get a spectacular fall, especially if 2 of them get up there. They are incredibly cute. Playing and exploring their surroundings. Anything to bite and chew on or play with? Very, very smelly, almost a wet, sort of a wet dog type smell, and you can often smell where wild dogs have been. Oh, another game going on there. So Vernie was saying, I was wondering about, and heard that when wild dogs come through an area, sometimes the general game gets a bit skittish or becomes very, very quiet. And that does happen from time to time. And also, why are we seeing so many wild dogs at Djuma at the moment? Do they spend a lot of time here all year? Well, oh, what's that? Oh, zebras down the road as well. So, Vernie, at the moment, they dend to the north of us in the Manuleti, and they become mobile with the pups quite early, as you can see. And I just think at the moment they'll be hunting this area. There is a strong possibility they're probably not going to stay longer than a week or two on Djuma itself every day, and they'll go in vast sort of round areas hunting. I mean, their home range can be up to in this area about 60,000 hectares, which is basically the size of the whole Sabi Sands. So I think we're just very, very lucky at the moment to have them on Djuma, and have had them on Djuma for the past week. And when they do move through an area, they do tend to keep the impala very fit. Oh, and I know you guys saw those who were watching the sunset safari last night saw some absolutely incredible behavior with James, with that impala dropping down behind a bush and the dog running straight past it. Oh, we have another tree climbing wild dog. Not very brave though, doesn't want to go too high. So Vernie, what will happen is that they will utilize an area till the game is very skittish, and then they'll move on to the next area. They're all moving slowly down towards where the adults are lying over there. I was wondering if someone was going to be rude enough to wake up mum and dad. So, with wild dogs having these great home ranges and moving vast distances in a year, Terry's just wondering how large an area would you need, or would a reserve need, to host a small pack of wild dogs? Obviously, if there's enough food. I mean, Terry, anything over 10,000 hectares is probably sufficient. One must remember, wild dogs like leopard and hyena is one of the animals you cannot keep inside a fence. They will always almost get out and extend their home range. But anything over 10,000 hectares is probably fine. You just got to realize they're not going to stay in that 10,000 hectares. They are going to move out, but if they're bowmaned correctly when you move them into that area, you can make sure that they set that sort of as the core of their home range. And the other problem is that a wild dog pack can go from small to large in one denning season. I mean, there are records of wild dog females having over 20 pups. So you can go from 2 dogs to 22 dogs in one season. Although obviously with mortalities, you probably find that only out of a litter of 20, only, if you're lucky, 50% will survive. These 3 dogs seem to be doing a really great job at the moment. I think they've only lost one since the the pups have left the den. So there were 12, I think, originally, and so only lost one pup. And probably the biggest killer of wild dog pups is lions. And all predators will, if given the opportunity, take out the baby of another predator, just from a competition point of view. And believe it or not, I've actually seen a pack of wild dogs kill an adult female leopard in Botswana. And that was a big pack, about 25 dogs. And they made very short work of that leopard. They caught her in some very open ground, and she wasn't fast enough to get to a tree. And I've seen wild dogs tree leopards regularly, chase them up trees. I've seen them chase caracal or lynx. I've seen them chase aardwolf. I've seen them chase jackals, serval. And one of the more memorable sightings I've had is, and I've spent an incredible amount of time with dogs, especially up in Botswana, is very similar to this. Puppy's about the same age. And while they were out hunting, they found a pangolin, and the puppies proceeded to spend the next 45 minutes playing with a pangolin. So it would be very nice if you dogs would manage to find a pangolin for us. I'm sure everyone, including us on the vehicles and all our viewers, would be very excited to see a pangolin. But they do occur here, so there's always that chance. Oh, it's tired, puppy. So wild dogs are one of the smaller carnivores and predators we get out here in the bush. And obviously some animals are just a bit too big for them to take down. And Kathy from Tennessee is wondering, what animals do they avoid apart from elephants? Well, Kathy, they don't. It's quite a funny thing. I've regularly seen wild dogs play with elephants, tease them into chasing them, and it's quite a special thing to see. I've seen them do it with buffalo bulls, but if they don't really avoid elephants and buffalo and stuff, they're obviously not going to hunt them. Although, saying that, a friend of mine from Botswana witnessed, as far as we know, the first and only wild dog hunt on a breeding herd of buffalo, and they took down a sub-adult buffalo calf. It looks like everyone's settling down here at the moment. Two over there, one over there, adults sleeping there. You can just hear some of the other youngsters off in the tree line behind us, and some zebra down the road. But so they don't really avoid those giraffe and all your sort of herbivores, and zebra and wildebeest will chase them. They don't really avoid them as such. The thing that they truly try to avoid is lions. They'll chase leopard, they'll chase hyena, and very interestingly, they've got a very interesting way of dealing with hyenas. And I think you guys were lucky enough to see that with Scott this week, when they chase a hyena and they bite him on the bum. They do sometimes cause blood, but I've never actually heard of them actually pulling through and killing the hyena. So they sort of harass the hyena. I haven't seen it with the wild dogs in the Sabi Sands, but wild dogs in Botswana and Tanzania that I used to follow on a daily basis would often, especially at this stage when they're mobile, the hyenas would trail them. So if the dogs were sleeping here, there'd be 3 or 4 hyenas sleeping within 100 or 200 meters, and they'd just sit behind the dogs and wait for them to make a kill, and then come scavenge, and get some incredibly intense reactions, and it sounds absolutely blood-curdling, all that high-pitched twittering and that of the hyena who's having his bottom mauled. But generally very little harm comes to the hyena from those encounters. So wild dogs are slightly different from your normal dog, and even in their scientific name that's visible. So a normal dog, so like a wolf or a domestic dog, it starts with the word canis, and these begin with lichen or licon, and so they are different. They separated from their dog ancestors. With the other dogs, they all separated quite a long time ago. And Jeffrey from Austin in Texas, the Lone Star State, and is wondering, do wild dogs bark? So they do have this wonderful array of twittering sounds that they use, but they do have a bark, and it's generally an alarm call. I'm not going to do it while we're next to the dogs. I don't want to give them a fright, but when we move away from them, I will give you an impression of a wild dog bark. It's not quite like a dog bark. It's a sort of very gruff, short, and it's an alarm call bark. And then obviously, apart from that high-pitched twittering, oh, look at that. Apart from that, they have a woo call. That's what it's called, and that's a contact call. So when they're hunting and they get separated, they use the woo call to locate each other again. And so I find it a very beautiful, beautiful call. I think quite a few people would disagree with me, but so once we're away from the dogs a little bit, I'll give you an impression of those calls. So there's 11 youngsters in this pack at the moment, and Rumay is wondering, do you know how many males and females are in this pack? Well, Rumay, with the adults, yes, it's 2 males and 1 female. With the puppies, I haven't actually counted yet, and it's always quite difficult because, as you can see, they move between each other and spread out. But I have seen both. That's about as all that I'm willing to confirm, that there are males and females amongst the puppies. But the actual breakup between the sexes, I'm not 100% sure yet. And you can still see they are young, especially when you see them amongst the next to the adults. And Miss Cool is wondering how old these guys are. So I can't be 100% sure when they were born, but they're probably born in June, sometime in the Manuleti Game Reserve. They didn't find the den until very, very late this year, the guys up there. So I would guess June, probably early June. So they probably, or maybe even May, they could have been born. So they're between 5 and 6 months old. So, at the moment they are very static for wild dogs, and those who've been watching for a while know when wild dogs get moving, they get seriously moving. And James Bear is wondering, do wild dogs send out scouts to look for prey, or do they start the hunt as a pack? Well, generally they'll start the hunt. There's a bit of whining from that one walking at the back there. Where's everyone? You heard that high pitch. So James, they'll head out together as a pack, and they've got a very specific type of hunting style. It's called coursing. So they're very sight orientated, and unlike a leopard or a lion or a cheetah, which is more walk and stalk, they will course. So they'll basically move through an area until they spot something and disturb it, and then chase it. So they will generally go out as a pack together hunting till something is spotted, and then basically it's pandemonium. So if you have a look at this little guy, his ears almost look out of proportion to the rest of his body, so big, and his eyes, wondering why would that be? Well, just think about, look at that design, Zai. It's like this perfect dish for catching all the sounds around, and you can see how the little guy is moving his ears, listening, picking up and different sounds. Now he's listening to me by the way his ears are facing, wondering what I'm talking about. So it's to maximize their hearing, and they're able to hear an incredible amount. They're like little radar dishes that just pick up every sound around them. And obviously living out in the bush, having exceptional hearing is quite good in terms of survival. They can hear if a possible predator is approaching. They can sometimes hear where the prey is running. And we can see most of the dogs are static, the youngsters wandering around a little bit and playing. And Paul Rizzo is just saying, oh, are there any other wild dogs expected back? No, Paul. So all dogs are present and accounted for, the 3 adults and the 11 puppies. And we've had 1 or 2 tree climbing puppies. Is this going to be another? No, just a hop over. So even though wild dogs might share some resemblance to domestic dogs, BJ and Rich King are wondering, have they ever been domesticated? Could you domesticate them? And the answer is no. I mean, you can domesticate anything or tame it, but they would make terrible domestic pets. Being so active, and they need to eat quite a lot because they have a very high metabolism. So they haven't been domesticated, nor would I ever recommend domesticating any wild animal for that fact, or keeping any wild animal in captivity. They're much better suited to being out in the wilderness. And a lot of keeping animals in captivity is quite selfish, I feel, more for the benefit of the people who keep them than the animals themselves. Obviously, with domestic animals, it's a bit different, and there's a couple of thousand years of process there. And you will find what happened with the domestication of cats and dogs, more so than your beasts of burden like horses and donkeys and things like that, is that the animals would have naturally started habituating to people. So because we are such messy creatures and we leave a lot of waste, which is an ideal spot for an animal like a domestic dog to scavenge from, so it can get good food without too much effort. And then secondary in creating so much waste is we create problems with rodents, and the rodents coming in to also scavenge there would have brought the cats. So I think it probably would have been a gradual process where of us getting used to the animals and the animals getting used to us, and us sort of learning that if we feed them they might hang around longer, and from the benefits, obviously, towards the domestic dogs and cats is that they got free food and they didn't have to work too hard for it. Benefits for humans, well, with the cats, obviously, the rodent problem was quite taken care of. And from having dogs around, I think initially, before they were fully domesticated, just imagine a wonderful early warning system. So if you were at your cave or in your hut out in the African savannah and it's pitch black, but you're sitting outside around the fire and you've got a domestic dog who starts growling or barking, you can be sure that there's possibly a predator around, so you need to know to be safe to avoid lions and that. And I think that's probably how it initially started, and obviously that relationship has grown on immensely since then. But wild dogs are a bit of a different kettle of fish compared to domestic dogs. Metabolism's much higher and very social animal, but then so are domestic dogs. Pack orientated, I just don't think it would be very easy to keep them. So we're having a look here, and we just got a quick thing while we're going to move and then send you over to have a look at Karula so we can try see if we can get a better picture of these dogs. But Chelsea's wondering, are wild dogs the same as dingoes? Well, not at all, Chelsea. Dingo is a canis, so far more closely related to a domestic dog and can breed with domestic dogs, whereas these cannot at all. While we move, let's go have a look what Karula's up to.
And Karula, in her wonderfully unpredictable way, has decided to continue to grace us with her presence. Instead of disappearing, oh, hello girl. Instead of disappearing into Buffelshoek, she's now found a really comfortable spot in the Jackleberry on the Buffelshoek cut line. How spoiled are we? I'm going to shift forward so Tebs can see her. I've got a perfect view, but Tebs doesn't. See if I can get a slightly better view. See if this works. Slowly, 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 slowly. Here we go. Thank you, Karula. You wonderful creature. Was there ever a cat that looked more comfortable? She's positively cuddling the Jackleberry branch. And she's found a headrest. I've tried lying like leopards in jackleberries and marula trees. It's never felt quite as comfortable as they make it look. I guess they're just better at it. And we've got that beautiful view of her paws, and what I wanted to do was actually return to Mercedes' question in terms of comparing lions and leopards. We've got her form stretched out across the branch. It's a perfect opportunity for the comparison. Right, so both leopards and lions are stealth predators. They're ambush predators. But the difference is that lions they hunt in prides, obviously. That may seem very self-explanatory, but it does make a difference because it means that they're equipped for short, sudden bursts of speed, and then they can rely on the rest of the pride to help them take down a prey item or prey animal. Leopard is all on her own. She's got to be able to maintain that short, sharp burst for a longer period because she doesn't have anyone else to rely on. But both of the cats have very deep-set lungs that provide the oxygen. When they take in a deep breath, their diaphragm is very well equipped for expanding and contracting downwards in a way that pulls air into the lungs and allows them that burst of explosive muscle power and energy. And that way they are very similar. In terms of paw structure, absolutely the same. Just lions' paws are built for gripping bigger prey. Leopards' paws are perfectly adapted for holding their entire body weight while they climb a tree with prey in their mouth. So she could pull something of her own weight up into this jackalberry with her if she wanted to. That dew claw, especially on the inside of the leg, you can't see it too clearly at the moment, but on the inside of each front foot there is a very well attached dew claw, and that's there to help hoist her up and grip the bark of the tree. Now, the reason that leopards and lions fall into a Panthera family, or the Panthera family, they're roaring cats. It's what sets them apart from something like a cheetah. So although the cheetah is the other big cat we get out here, and it falls into the feline family, leopards and lions are distinct because they've got that voice box brought in that allows them to roar. And lions in particular, they've got a muscle attachment that runs from their larynx down and attaches just below their sternum. And when they open up and give that deep throaty roar, that is when that muscle contracts and pulls the larynx down and deepens the sound. They're incredible animals, they really are. And when we hear that leopard sawing sound, we've heard Karula do it before, Tingana, that sound, that's them roaring. That is a leopard's roar. That was probably the worst impression of a leopard roar I have ever done, but just take my word for it. Most of you will know what I mean. And there'll be plenty of videos you can look up of leopards calling. But you won't generally find a lion around here that looks as comfortable, as high up as she is. Now, I mentioned when she went into the marula that this is the perfect time of year for them to be climbing marula trees. And I mentioned jackalberries as well, and she's behaved absolutely perfectly. She went from a marula tree to a jackalberry tree, found herself a really comfy spot in the shade. That dense foliage, as you can see, is protecting her from the heat of the sun, but she's got a cool breeze blowing over her, and really I'm quite tempted to go and join her. I'm so chuffed that we've been this lucky. Generally, my experiences with the unpredictable Karula has been that she disappears 5 minutes in. So to be able to spend so much time with her is something I'm incredibly grateful for. Today, she's decided to stick around. We had her walking through, and it's something that, just to continue our comparison between lions and leopards and actually all of the animals out here, Brian, who is watching all the way in Philadelphia, Brian wants to know if those muscle contractions along her back that we see, we can't see them now, but that we have seen while she was walking and while she was moving and when she was lying down on the termite mound, Brian, those are involuntary, and they're usually in response to a minor stimulation around the area. So it could be a fly lying on her fur, maybe a bit of a tick that's settled in and is making her itchy, but not itchy enough to stop and scratch. And they twitch, and you'll actually see it with all of the animals. If we get lucky enough to stop and see some zebra, feels like a long time since I've seen zebra, but zebra in particular, you'll be able to see those muscle contractions that happen so fast. And it's entirely, I don't even think, well, this is supposition, but I think I might be right about it. I think it's a reflex arc. So from the nerve that receives that stimulus of the fly or the tick moving, instead of going through the brain, it just goes straight to the spinal column and then hooks up instantly with a motor neuron, so the nerves that cause movement, and results in that contraction, just so that the brain doesn't get taken up with. Essentially, it's a reflex arc. The brain doesn't have to make that decision for her. You've got this beautiful Karula, but I know that Brent is planning on saying goodbye to his favorite wild dogs very soon. So we'll head across to him for now, and I will be back with you in just a few moments.
So we're with the alpha pair, and they are very much sleepy puppies. The female on the left, the male on the right. The other adult is lying up to the back. Sorry guys, I'll be with you in a second. Just got to be on the game drive radio for a second. Sorry guys, just talking in my ear quickly, the game drive. But while I wait for them to finish chatting, so all three adults are present. There's the alpha pair lying here, and the puppies are spread out through on the edge of this tree line here, and there's some in the bushes there, some a little bit further, but you see there's one digging down to get a nice cool spot to sleep in. Sorry. Andrew, I'm still with my Dutch there. Lala and Philemon's cut line 200 meters to the south of Shabam Junction. So this is the Investec breakaway pack. There were four dogs in the beginning of the year. One dog died to snake bite in the Manuleti Game Reserve. And all the puppies and adults are present and accounted for here. So 11 youngsters and 3 adults, 2 males and 1 female. So we're going to let the dogs sleep off their morning activity and see what else we can find out here in the magnificent Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Great Kruger National Park. And while we move on, I know all of you can't wait to get back to the Queen of Djuma, Karula.
Still with the wonderful Karula, who has not moved a centimetre apart from the odd ear flick to dislodge the flies. Also something that I think happens pretty much involuntarily. And you know, I think if you were driving past here, there's a very good chance you wouldn't see her. She's quite clear from the exact position that I'm at, but any other place that we moved to, or if we were driving down the road, she'd be completely hidden by the foliage. I mean, unless of course you've got Tebs with you, in which case you can spot a leopard at 50 meters in thick bush. But that's a special talent. For the most part, I often wonder, in terms of my entire guiding career, how many leopards I have driven past that have just watched me go, and walked past actually, that just watch you go. They're beautifully built for camouflage. I love the way she's found that little knot in the tree where it curves, and that served as the most brilliant chin rest. Could not be more perfect. And look how clearly you can see the wow on her forehead. It's something that took me ages to see, but now that I've seen it and now that it's been pointed out to me, I can't unsee it at all. There are those twitches again in response to flies. Every now and again her eyelids twitch, her whiskers twitch. The other thing I've noticed about leopards and lions, still continuing with that, along that vein, leopards' whiskers tend to be just that fraction longer than lions, and both of those cats, they use them as a way of navigating through thick bush, especially in the dark, as kind of an aid to that brilliant night vision that they have. But leopards, I think because of their preference in terms of habitat, it's even more pronounced. They move through thick blocks and thick drainage lines, as Karula has done many, many times before. And they use them to help maneuver. We've just been watching Karula. Oh, that got uncomfortable. Just shifting around. Find another spot. We've been watching Karula this morning. She's exhausted from all of her territorial patrolling and scent marking. And Kay, you wanted to know which is more territorial, or female lions, so pride of lions, or a female leopard? I would say, but it's very close, I would say that female leopards are more territorial because they are meant to be solitary. They're solitary creatures. But both with leopards and with lions, territorial it's an interesting term, and it's a fluid process. So there'll always be overlapping parts, both for prides of lions and for female leopards. So she might be all the way in the western edge of her territory, and so the female who shares the eastern boundary might protrude slightly into her area. In terms of aggression with each other when they encounter each other, it's probably more likely though that the lionesses will come to physical blows. It's interesting, there's a lot of literature on leopards and or female leopards when they encounter another female, whether it's unknown or their daughter or their mother. They show little tendency towards aggression. I still think that they regularly patrol and mark their territories more than prides of lions. Aggression in terms of hunting, just to finish off that moment, it's much of a muchness. Leopards go for smaller prey. I don't think you can define it in terms of aggression. The female leopards tend to target things like steenbok, maybe impala. Impala's quite big, but we've seen Shadow do it, we've seen Karula doing it. Lions need, I suppose if you want to term it aggression, they just need the numbers to take down bigger prey, and because they target bigger prey animals, they might seem more aggressive because the bigger prey is capable of fighting back that much more. But I don't think you can really term it in terms of aggression. And I hope for Carol, I hope that answers your question as well, in terms of what happens when females encounter each other. I've read some statistics. It differs from place to place. They have come to blows. People have seen them fighting each other off. They tend to be not as aggressive as conflict between males and not as dangerous. Male leopards can fight to the death. Generally, females will give each other an icy stare and then walk off in opposite directions. You can make of that and interpret that as you will. For female leopards, the most aggressive they might be is if they have cubs with them and they encounter an unknown female. Then they might become incredibly defensive of their cubs. I'm not sure how many cases there are recorded of unknown females killing leopard cubs, or strange females, nomadic females. It would be interesting to look up and research. We know that one of the main causes of leopard cub mortality is strange male leopards. I wonder how many recorded cases there are of females doing it. I think it's unlikely, but it does reduce competition for their own cubs. Interesting. I don't know the answer to this. I'm just putting it out there as something to think about. It's great to have Vernie watching once again. And Vernie, you wanted to know that you've heard that male leopards become nomadic in their old age. Does the same thing happen to females? Typically not. They will stay in their home range until they die. Their territory might get slightly smaller with more and more encroachments, especially from their daughters moving into their area. And they might find it shifts ever so slightly to an area where they have best access to prey. Just because if they are getting older, hunting gets that little bit more difficult. But no, they don't, as far as I know, they don't tend to go as nomadic as males do. And that, I think, is a byproduct of what I mentioned earlier about the fact that females don't come into conflict as often as the males do, and they don't fight as seriously to defend their territories. Males, on the other hand, it's a life or death thing. They need the territories in order to pass on their genetic line, and there's always a big male who's dispersed, waiting in the wings, waiting to take over that particular spot and have access to those females. It's interesting in that way that females, or that lions and leopards at least, are actually quite similar. So the female line, the female genetic line, like Karula and Shadow and Tundi, all of the leopards that we see in this area who are females, that genetic line stays within an area in much the same way that probably the Nkuhuma pride that moves around here, those females have probably been moving in this area for decades, if not longer. We just don't know. They are area dependent. And then males disperse far and wide and keep the genetic lines fresh and clear from inbreeding. So male lions, we spoke about it, the Birmingham boys came from easily 40 kilometers away. And I also mentioned that the record for a male leopard moving into a new territory is somewhere in the region, I think, of 600 kilometers. And I suppose in an interesting way they are actually quite similar, even though you're looking at solitary versus social animals. Look at that. What a perfect tree. Been driving around with Tebs, and I said to him so many times this week, why is it that there's never a leopard in a leopard tree? And by leopard tree I mean a tree that looks like it should have a leopard in it. And Karula has obliged so perfectly twice today. I cannot believe our luck. Now she's sitting there really comfortably, and Barbara, you're amazed at the fact that she doesn't have to roll over, or doesn't actually roll over in her sleep. And I always feel that way about leopards as well when I see them sitting in trees or sleeping in trees. I can barely stay on my own bed at night. I move around so much. So how they manage to sleep peacefully and comfortably without tumbling out is a special leopard gift, I suppose. Oh, it's got suddenly very bright. And on the subject, Carolyn, you were wondering if they do ever fall out of trees. I'm not going to say never. I've never seen it. I've only ever seen cubs fall out of trees or adults dismounting ungracefully, but I've never seen a sleeping leopard fall out of a tree before. I have a cat at home that wandered in 10 years ago and just never left. We have no idea where she came from. A domestic cat at my parents' house in Johannesburg. And I've seen her fall off the couch a couple of times just by rolling over in her sleep, which actually makes me wonder whether or not leopards might do it. And somehow I imagine if it did happen, they would look incredibly embarrassed. I don't know, my cat seems to do a wonderful, she looks at you as if she cannot believe, or daring you to laugh, I suppose, before she stalks off. And somehow I imagine leopards would do something very similar. I don't think they'd enjoy it. That being said, if Karula were to roll out now, she'd actually scrabble. She'd catch the branch before she toppled out completely. And even if she didn't, she'd probably still be fine. She might hurt her ankles a bit, but she would land on her feet. That tree is probably about 15 meters up. It's high. Hugely unlikely though, but never say never. And I actually think something that would be quite funny to see, provided it was nice and low to the ground. You can hear an oriole whistling off in the distance. spoken a bit about, and when we first saw her, we weren't quite sure who she was. There's a couple of different leopards that we see in this area. And Angie, who's watching us all the way in Portland, you were unsure about which leopard we're looking at and how to spell the names. This is Karula, Karula, meaning peace or peaceful. Now you want to know if it's the same leopard that we saw with an injury on her back. Angie, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you might be referring to that sighting we had about 2 months ago with Kwetile. So similar, starts with a K, Kwetile, which means the grumpy or the angry one, the exact opposite of Karula, the peaceful one. And Kwetile hasn't been seen, by us at least, since she was mating with Tingana, but the injury wasn't serious that she had. Where was it? It was her back. Was it back right? She also had a bite mark on her leg. Oh, I remember. She had what almost looked like puncture wounds, possibly from hooves or horns, something she tried to kill. They weren't serious, they weren't deep, and I'm pretty sure they will have healed up perfectly by now. If we hear anything further on Kwetile, I'm always keen to see her. I think she's probably the most beautiful leopard I've ever seen, personally. I mean, not that Karula isn't absolutely stunning. Angie, if that's not the leopard or the incident that you are referring to, then I'm sorry. It's the only one I can think of. I haven't seen Karula with any major injuries. Her neck, the back of her neck was a bit scuffed from when she was mating with Tingana, but that always happens during leopard mating, and it's healed up perfectly well. I think that might be what you were referring to. And I know that many of you will be wondering about Tingana's limp, just while we're talking about injuries that happen in the course of leopard life. Tingana is one of the dominant males in this area, and who was mating with Karula just a few weeks ago. As far as I know, Tingana's limp is much better, from what I've heard. So I'm sure you're all happy to hear that. These injuries come and go. These animals are far more resilient than we could ever hope to be. Now, Karula is not the youngest leopard on this reserve. She has bred forth many generations of happy leopards that are running around here. But Remay, you were wondering, when a female reaches the end of her life, will she stop mating because she knows that it's the end of her time to have a litter of cubs? It's a good question, and it's one that I'm not 100% sure of the answer. I know that there was records of females having cubs at the age of 16, so they probably don't stop mating. I don't think they go through a menopause in the same way that people do. And I think, although it's possible that they would, I think they die of natural causes before they actually reach that point. I could be wrong. I'm not sure what happens to animals in captivity, but you'll probably find that their fertility rates will go down. And of course, all female mammals are born with the number of eggs that they're going to release in their lives. No mammal produces more eggs during their lifetime. As far as I know, there might be one odd exception, but for the most part, human beings, leopards, anything like that, they have a set number of eggs. So at some point, I suppose a menopause is inevitable, but leopards in the wild, female leopards in the wild, generally don't get to that point. They die before they reach that point, and that's just because life is hard out here. And when old age starts to set in, they break teeth, their teeth become a little bit worn down, not as sharp, their reflexes aren't what they used to be. Hunting's just that little bit harder, and they will either be caught out by a lion or something similar. But that is an interesting question, Remay. I might do a little bit of extra research later today and figure out exactly. I know I've read somewhere that a 16-year-old leopard was recorded to have bred in the wild. But leopards can live up to 20. So, interesting to think about. I definitely think their fertility rates will drop, though. And we've had a lot of discussions about this because Tingana has been mating with 3 different females pretty much non-stop for the last 2 months or so. And a lot of people are questioning what's happening there. I just think that we don't realize, we're so lucky, we get to see these leopard mating activities so frequently. But it's so seldom seen in terms of research potential that I just think we don't realize how low the chances of fertilization actually are in just normal leopard mating activity. Don't necessarily think it's that Karula or Tingana are any less fertile than any other leopards out here. I don't think we can draw that conclusion yet. It's incredible. We could totally drive past her and we would never know she was here, again, except if we had Tebs in the vehicle. And she, I think, has found the perfect spot. The temperature has gone up. It's just before 8 in the morning and the temperature is probably around 30 degrees, and I think she might have found her spot for the day. Nice and shaded and cool. And these jackalberries, like the one she's sitting in, if I had to choose, and I always struggle to answer this question, but if I had to choose my top 5 favorite trees, I'm pretty sure a jackalberry would fall into that category. I definitely couldn't choose my favorite, but there's something about that dark bark with the thick green foliage. I can perfectly understand why a leopard would make that a home. Oh, shifting around. So she might not roll over in her sleep, but she definitely has to reposition every now and again. And jackalberries have that flaky looking bark. It's not smooth and even. It's quite, what's the word? Textured. It can't always be comfortable. There must be bits that dig in and uncomfortable knobbly bits. And she doesn't seem too worried though. Karula is not going to disappear anytime soon. She's looking incredibly comfortable, and I believe that Brent has found some elephants to show you. So from one of my favorites to another, let's head across and see Brent's elephants.
So we've just come across a little breeding herd of ellies. There is a young bull walking towards us who is possibly going to be one of the monsters of tomorrow. I mean, he doesn't look like he's much over 12 years old. And look at those tusks on him already. Look at that. Very young. And a really good set of teeth. So there's quite a few of these all spread around us. The herd isn't that relaxed, so I'm not going to go any closer or push them at all. It's got that slight sort of nervousness from one of the females, so we're going to keep our distance. Here comes that young bull again. So this is also the area where those leopard tracks were last seen. And I thought I just heard a dwarf mongoose alarm call. We've had a great view of those big ellie bulls this morning, and now a nice little breeding herd. I'm just going to go have a quick look where I can hear that dwarf mongoose alarm calling. You never know, a leopard might be right there. So Ellen from Arkansas was wondering, how does a male elephant choose the female he's going to mate with? Does he follow a herd and just choose a specific female. Here we go. With elephants, it's very particular. A female has to be an estrus, and a male has to be in must for them to mate. So I can hear another, I heard it again, the Dwarf Mongoose alarm calling, and Scott and James last had those leopard tracks very close to here. So, and there's a nice thick drainage line here, so the leopard could easily be sleeping in one of these thickets. Sorry, and back to your question there. Let's have a quick. And I hear a squirrel alarm calling. Squirrel's alarm calling there. Dwarf mongoose alarm calling here. Never know. Yeah, okay, so we're right next to Dwarf Mongoose alarm calls, somewhere in the base of this thicket. So right here, there's a drainage line here. Some nice shade where a leopard might want to rest. Let's just head forward a tiny bit. And I was saying, so elephants are unusual in the fact that they need the male and the female both need to be in a heightened state or heightened hormonal state. In males it's called must, and in females estrus, and only then will they mate. So both animals have to be in that same sort of cycle to mate. So yeah, I'm just feeling those male leopard tracks went off just there here. And the fact you're in a squirrel, and squirrels can quite often see from quite far, but dwarf mongoose being terrestrial and based on the ground, whatever it's alarming at, unless there's a bird flying over, would have to be quite close. Mysteries. That's a fantastic thing about the bush, is we're constantly unraveling a puzzle. That's why you can never get bored, and every day is completely different. Let's just have a quick look where the squirrel is. Game park there, but there's a little access road here. We just checked the drainage line behind it, and there are some wonderfully large trees in this area. And in this really hot, low-felt summer, leopards do sometimes choose to rest in the tree, like Karula is doing at the moment. It's a bit cooler, as well as the fact that it gets them away from the flies. A little bit, not much, just enough to be a little bit more comfortable. That squirrel's alarming and these tall knob thorns up here. Have a quick squeeze around here. Looking into the deep shade. That leopard has to be around here somewhere. And those tracks we saw this morning were really, really fresh. But it has been a fantastic start. Well, for me being back, wonderful to be with those big ellie bulls right off the bat, and very excited for everyone that Jamie managed to find Karula, the queen, and instead of disappearing, she's decided to grace almost the entire sunrise safari with her presence. And of course I'm always ecstatic when I get to see my favorite animal, the African wild dog, and so great to see those puppies doing so well and no losses since I've been gone. But unfortunately it doesn't seem like our alarm calls panned out in this area, so we're gonna head back to Jamie so you can end the show with Karula.
I still cannot get over how incredibly lucky we've been. Fly up my nose. It's just been the most phenomenal morning, and largely thanks to Tebs and his fantastic spotting. Let us finish off with a view of Karula. I'm going to say goodbye to now and for now, and thank you to you all for your brilliant questions. To Tebs, very well done. To Brent on the other vehicle, as well as to Jerry and Jerry and Nikki, who are directing us in FC. Have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, and please join us for the sunset safaris this afternoon. Bye bye for now, and have a wonderful day.